The Second Punic War saw the Roman Republic clash with Carthage, a dominant force in the Mediterranean, based in what is now Tunisia. Carthage held territories along the North African coast and the Iberian Peninsula. Rome aimed to leverage its naval superiority to launch an invasion that would compel Carthage to agree to Roman peace conditions. In response, Carthage enlisted its most esteemed general, Hannibal, who devised an aggressive strategy. He would preemptively invade Italy, shifting the battlefront to Roman soil, forcing Rome to defend its territory. Achieving this required an audacious military maneuver. Hannibal planned to lead his army across the formidable Alps, a feat that would go down in history as one of the most daring military campaigns ever undertaken. The Second Punic War, a monumental clash between the Roman Republic and the Carthaginian Empire, centered around dominance in the Mediterranean. Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, controlled vast territories across North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula. Rome, determined to assert its supremacy, planned to use its formidable naval power to invade Carthage and impose peace terms favorable to itself. Facing this imminent threat, Carthage relied on its greatest military strategist, Hannibal, who chose to confront Rome not on Carthaginian soil, but within Italy itself. Hannibal's audacious strategy involved a direct invasion of Italy, aimed at forcing Rome to defend its own lands and thereby destabilizing its military posture. The execution of this plan required traversing the daunting Alps, challenging not only due to the harsh, unpredictable weather and rugged terrain, but also because the passes were guarded by hostile local tribes. These tribesmen, familiar with the landscape, posed a significant threat as they could easily launch attacks from elevated positions. Hannibal's army was not just a small, agile force, but a massive assembly comprising 70,000 soldiers, 20,000 horses, and notably, 37 elephants. This diverse and cumbersome military contingent faced tremendous logistical challenges during the Alpine crossing. Despite these obstacles, under Hannibal's leadership, the Carthaginians completed their perilous journey across the Alps in just 16 days, a feat that historian Titus Livius documents in his accounts. The decision to cross the Alps was dictated by several strategic considerations. Hannibal's route by land was necessitated by the lack of sufficient naval resources and allied ports that could support a large-scale maritime assault on Italy. Furthermore, by entering Italy from the north, Hannibal aimed to gain the support of local tribes in northern Italy, who were already antagonistic toward Roman dominion. Establishing alliances with these tribes was crucial for augmenting his forces and enhancing his supply lines, essential for maintaining a prolonged military campaign in enemy territory. This strategic incursion not only exemplified military audacity, but also highlighted the intricate interplay of geography, local alliances, and logistical planning in ancient warfare. Hannibal's journey through the Alps remains one of the most studied military maneuvers in history, demonstrating how terrain and diplomacy can be as decisive in warfare as the strength of armies. Tracing Hannibal's route through the Alps. The exact path Hannibal took while crossing the Alps remains a subject of scholarly debate even after more than 2 millennia. Recent research, which includes the analysis of ancient animal dung deposits, points to a possible route through the Col de la Traversette, a high-altitude pass located in southeastern France near the Italian border, standing about 7,700 feet above sea level. By the time Hannibal and his army approached the Alps in late September or early October of 218 BC, winter was quickly setting in, making haste a necessity. The troops were adequately prepared for the cold, possibly outfitting their footwear with early versions of what we would recognize today as crampons to enhance their traction on the icy terrain. Writing 200 years after these events, the Roman historian Livy, drawing from earlier Carthaginian records, vividly described the harrowing scene encountered by Hannibal's forces. He depicted the formidable mountains, their peaks covered in snow reaching towards the heavens, primitive huts clinging to rocky cliffs, and the local fauna and inhabitants, all appearing gaunt and frostbitten. Livy's account paints a chilling picture of the landscape that not only tested the resolve of the Carthaginians, but also heightened their fears, with the harsh conditions rendering every step a brush with potential disaster. According to the historical accounts recorded by Livy, as Hannibal's first Carthaginian column cautiously moved forward, they found themselves surrounded by local tribesmen. Reacting swiftly, Hannibal commanded his forces to stop and dispatched his Gallic guides to scout the area. The next morning, he strategically left the bulk of his army at the camp while organizing a contingent of his most courageous and resolute light infantry. This group quietly climbed to high vantage points along the path. Livy recounts that when the local tribesmen returned the following day, they were met with a startling sight: Hannibal's elite troops positioned directly above them, ready for an ambush. Battles with tribesmen. Despite Hannibal's tactical positioning, the local tribesmen opted to attack after observing the difficulties faced by the main Carthaginian column, which struggled with the challenging terrain. This confrontation resulted in significant losses for Hannibal's forces. The Roman historian Polybius details that the approach to the pass was fraught with dangers. It was not only narrow and uneven, but also bordered by steep cliffs, causing many pack animals to fall to their deaths along with their loads. However, Hannibal's troops were also able to deal substantial damage to their assailants. After repelling the attack, they went on to overrun a nearby town held by the enemy. There, they rescued captured soldiers and animals, and secured enough provisions to sustain them for the coming days, as noted by Polybius. In the aftermath, Hannibal sought to establish peace with the mountain tribes. Nevertheless, these chieftains proved as unpredictable as the landscape itself, launching another unexpected assault as Hannibal's army navigated a particularly treacherous section of the pass. Despite suffering more losses, Hannibal's forces managed to fend off this second onslaught. Notably, Hannibal's elephants, possibly of a now extinct subspecies from the Atlas Mountains, played a crucial role in the battle. Their formidable and unfamiliar presence intimidated the enemy, who hesitated to approach the segment of the column where the elephants were positioned, Polybius recounted. The challenges Hannibal and his army faced in the Alps were compounded by the psychological strain of traversing such a daunting landscape, according to historian MacDonald. The enormity of the mountains, coupled with the cold, snowy conditions and the myths surrounding the terrain, would have instilled fear in the soldiers. MacDonald highlights not just the physical, but also the mental hurdles faced by the Carthaginians. Hannibal's leadership and innovative tactics were crucial for their survival. He is credited by the historian Livy with devising a technique to clear a path through a landslide using fire and spoiled wine, although MacDonald suggests this story might be embellished. By the 9th day, Hannibal's forces had reached the highest point of their crossing, but the troops were worn out and despondent. Recognizing the need to boost morale, Hannibal rode to the forefront of his army. There, he paused the march and encouraged his men to look out over Italy's Po Valley. He reassured them that the hardest part of their journey was behind them, promising smoother terrain ahead with no more mountains to conquer, as Polybius documents. The descent, as treacherous as the climb. The descent from the Alps proved to be even more perilous for Hannibal's army than the ascent, according to Polybius. The steep and treacherous slopes caused soldiers and animals alike to slip and fall, creating chaotic pile-ups. Polybius describes the scene vividly, noting that maintaining one's footing was nearly impossible, and any slip could lead to a dangerous tumble, adding to the disorder as men and beasts fell over each other. Historian MacDonald remarks that the weather conditions during the descent were particularly harsh, posing the greatest challenge and resulting in significant losses, especially among the animals. The supply lines had been disrupted, leaving both the soldiers and animals on the brink of starvation. The icy conditions made the descent lethal. Once Hannibal and his forces reached the valley floor, the climate was milder and the surroundings greener, providing some respite. While Hannibal had successfully led his troops through the Alps, the war was far from over. He continued to engage Roman forces on their own soil for several years, delivering devastating defeats, such as at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where his army killed at least 50,000 Roman soldiers. However, Hannibal was never able to capitalize fully on these victories to launch an assault on Rome itself, partly due to ongoing tensions with the Carthaginian Senate that undermined his support. The failure to provide reinforcements in Italy was a critical setback, and the inability to control maritime routes significantly disadvantaged one side in the conflict. The loss of strategic territories to the opposing forces marked a turning point that led to inevitable defeat in Italy. Eventually, the lead general was called back to defend his home city, which culminated in a decisive defeat at a major battle in 202 BC. This defeat marked the end of the war and effectively ended the challenge to the dominant empire's power. 50 years later, the victorious empire destroyed the city and incorporated its territories, extending its realm further. Nonetheless, the audacious march through the mountains by the defeated general remains a legendary example of military strategy and daring.